Hey there, this is Sherry McClurkin. I'm trying out YouTube Live for the first time. I am a coach, a Christian life coach who focuses in on women, perceptive women, to help them break free from the relationship hangover and build relationships that feel like coming home. And it doesn't matter whether this is friend, family, spouse, or partner, it's relationship. Today, I want to focus in on a specific issue that I see often. And every time I see it, honestly, it makes me a little bit sad because these beautiful, perceptive women, deeply feeling women, tell me about a relationship where they feel on pins and needles, unsettled. And I feel sad about that. They tell me they're trying to understand what is wanted of them, what the expectations are. They talk about how their minds are occupied afterward, like this is the relationship hangover, with figuring out how they're supposed to act around this other person, what is wanted of them, the mind trying to figure out what could I have said differently or done differently, or what did I miss? I hear this, and there's sadness. They describe their attempts of bringing a sense of settled to the relationship to end that pins and needles, because that's an awful feeling, right? They're trying to be more available, maybe, or they're not asking too much of the other, or they're doing their best to understand and take care of what the other person's needs are. They're going along with things they're not really interested in, but it's worth doing in their mind at that time for the peace of the relationship. And they're probably staying quiet. They're staying quiet when there's mixed messages in particular. And then those mixed messages take up so much space in their mind, trying to figure out what the heck is going on here. When I pull all of that together, when I pull that all together with everything I already know about them and what I know about relationships, excuse me, my phone beep there. I was just turning my phone off because this is live. I see them, what they're really doing, and they don't realize it, is they're trying to figure out who they are while they're inside this relationship. Who are they in this relationship? And there's an undercurrent of the same thing going on in all of the scenarios that I mentioned that they tell me about, and that is mind reading. But before I tell you more about that, let's think about this. These women have depth to give, and it's being held back because we're lacking some self-honesty. Not on purpose. They're missing an honest assessment of who they are in the relationship and outside of the relationship, an honest assessment. They're missing out on what they want, what they actually want from this relationship, and how they want to be treated. And they're not listening. They're not listening to their own pins and needles, because that's telling them something. They're not listening to it. I've been there. I know what this is like. I have been there. I also know you don't have to be there. I know there's a different way to go about doing relationships. They're working so hard on these relationships, so hard, and they're missing out on the authenticity and the security that they crave and they deserve. They deserve it. Instead of getting honest with themselves, getting really honest with themselves and digging into that why. Why do you feel so unsettled? Why are you on pins and needles? They're skipping ahead. They're jumping into mind reading. on both sides. Let me clarify. They're assuming that the other person, friend, family, spouse, partner, knows what they want. The other person knows what they want. And they're assuming they can accurately guess. They can accurately guess what the other one wants. And they're sitting in that. Mind reading takes up a great deal of time and energy, mind space, brain space. It's exhausting. So it also feels like you're actually working on the relationship because you are spending a lot of time and energy and thought and space on the relationship, except it's in the wrong place. It's misguided. It's missing the real point. So the unsettledness grows and the pins and needles grow and they're not really getting what they want. It's not that there's a problem with being more available, or there's not a problem with any of those other things. I'm going to call them tactics, that not asking too much and all those things I listed. They do have a place, and those things do have a place in some relationships, not always and not all relationships. There is a place for those things. The issue is you still have to do the self-honesty first, because you must know whether or not any of those things, what I call tactics, because they are things you've tried to do, they've tried to do to get off the pins and needles and the unsettled in that relationship. So I am calling them tactics. The tactics themselves are fine, still require honesty, really deep self-honesty first, so that you know they're using them when it really matters and not at enormous cost to yourself. And unfortunately, they're usually used at enormous self-cost. So once you stop the mind reading, once some of the women I've worked with have stopped the mind reading, and the self-honesty can open up because the mind reading is taking over. Once we can get through the mind reading, the self-honesty opens up and you start being able to look at the answers to those questions of who you are, what you're wanting, why you're even in this relationship, how you want to be treated. You can find answers. And instead of turning to tactics, you can turn to informed choices. So instead of choosing a relationship out of need, out of assumption based on mind reading, you then choose relationship and how you're going to be and how you're going to allow yourself to be treated and what you want out of the relationship. You're making deeply informed, clear choices, because now you're honest. That's self-honesty. Without the self-honesty, unsettled pins and needles, they remain, they grow. No matter how hard you work on that relationship, you've got, no matter what tactics, you've got to use the self-honesty first. And that's heartbreaking when they don't realize that, because using mind reading and tactics, they're losing in that relationship. The other one probably doesn't even see that there's a problem. Right? The other one doesn't really see that there's a problem. There's not a mutual understanding because we're not approaching the relationship with honesty, with self-awareness. It's not that women aren't self-aware. They just get lost. They got lost in this relationship, and the mind reading is one of the ways they got lost. The richness and depth of their feelings is stifled and unappreciated because of the mind reading and the lack of self-honesty. It is heartbreaking. If you see yourself in this, if you suspect you might be using mind reading or lacking in self-honesty in the relationship, if you'd like to learn more, There is a way to do relationships differently. I invite you to reach out to me. All of my contact information is in the description below. Reach out to me. Let's have a no strings attached, very simple, short little chat about where you are, what you're looking for, what your goals are, and let's see if we can get something going there. Maybe there's a fit. What I offer and what you're needing, let's see if there's a fit. Let's see what self-honesty might look like for you in your relationship. So you can start enjoying the authentic connection you desire and you deserve. My blessings to you.